Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Alan West.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I told Stacy she only had a minute. I think she came in at about 45 to 50 seconds. So you're good to go. You don't have to do any push-ups. Brad, Drew, thank you so very much for having me here. This is an incredible honor for me to stand in this gallery that you can only find in one other place, and that's the Pentagon. To be here in your home city that produced not one, not two, not three, but 4 Medal of Honor recipients. So I would say if there's any place where you should talk about American values, it's in Pueblo, Colorado. And I want to thank you for allowing this simple little boy to be here with you all. What I want to do is speak for about 25 or 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for question and answer after that. I want to start off talking about how is it that I'm standing here. I want you to think about something. I'm 65 years of age. I was born February the 7th of 1961 in a blacks-only hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in the same neighborhood that produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My elementary school, Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic School, was right across the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church. Our recess playground was right next door to Dr. King's boyhood home. And growing up, if you could, doing a game of kickball, if you kicked it over the wall of our recess yard, it went into his backyard, and you had to go get permission to go in and pick up that ball because it was a National Historic Site. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Sweet Auburn, that's what I grew up with. And so how is it that a kid born up in those times could grow up to become a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army when he started in a segregated hospital? How is it that a kid that could grow up, and at the time of his birth, Fort Lauderdale did not allow blacks to go on the beach, and you could not go across the bridge to Palm Beach Island. But at the age of 50, he was the congressional representative that included Fort Lauderdale Beach and Palm Beach Island. A kid that was born in a blacks-only hospital in 1961 that sat down and had dinner, not once, not twice, but 3 times, with a person by the name of Rush Limbaugh, because Rush Limbaugh was one of his constituents. A kid born in a blacks-only hospital who would sit down with a man who would become the president of the United States of America not once but twice because his residence, Mar-a-Lago, was in the district that he represented. That's what we're here to talk about, Drew. The values that enable a kid, the honor, the integrity, the patriotism, the character, the conviction, the commitment that enables me to be here before you all today. So where did it come from? Put up a picture of my old man. Picture of my dad with the old car. There's my dad. But I want you to go back and find the other picture when my dad had just come back from World War II. Here's a man that was born in 1920 in South Alabama. He grew up during the Depression. He jumped the Chattahoochee River, and his boyhood years were spent in South Georgia. When this country asked my dad to go and stand up for the principles and values of this great nation, he did not look down at his skin color and say, I'm not treated the same as others. He said, I will go and serve. He raised his right hand. He said those words, Drew, that you and I said, and many of the other veterans here. I, Herman West, Sr., do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take that obligation freely without any purpose of reservation or purpose of evasion or mental reservation. So help me God. A man who was not treated equal to others, but he had the honor to say, I have to step up as well. And so here, when you have that type of dad in the home, and understand something, that so many of our young people today, they don't even have a dad in the home. Not to mention a dad like what I had, a man that I could look to. I didn't need a basketball player to look to. I didn't need a baseball player, even though Hank Aaron, played for the Braves and he was a great baseball player. But I had my dad. That was my hero. That was the man that I learned honor from. That was the man that I learned integrity from because he was well respected. Whatever he said, His word was his bond. And that's how he taught me. And when you talk about patriotism, a man who grew up in a country that did not treat him as equal to others, but yet would still go and do as Abraham Lincoln said in the Gettysburg Address, be willing to make the last full measure of devotion for this country, that's the kind of example that I had in my home. And at the age of 15, this man, my father, challenged me to be the first officer in our family. As we sat on the steps of his house, 651 Kennesaw Avenue, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30308, 404-874-2836. I'll never forget those numbers because he drilled it into my head. But he said to me these words: "There's no greater honor than to wear the uniform of the United States of America. But son, you're going to be our first officer." Because my older brother, everybody's got a black sheep in the family. He was a Marine, and he served in Vietnam, okay? He liked the uniform, okay? He just didn't like that Army uniform. But the thing was that when you talk about instilling core principles and values in our young people, we have got to have adults. We have got to have mommies and daddies, grandmas and grandpas that challenge our young people to do as the Army once had as its motto, and it came back to be all you can be, not to settle. But here's the goal that I have established for you, my son. So when I think about the fact that we are going into the 250th remembrance of the independence of the United States of America, I go back 50 years ago to 1976, the bicentennial. And oh, by the way, put up that picture of young cadet Alan Bernard West, high school junior ROTC. Because what my dad did, he challenged me, and I went and joined high school junior ROTC at Henry Grady High School in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was not just the honor, the integrity, and the patriotism that I learned from my dad and my mother, but it was from Lieutenant Colonel Pagonis, Major Heredia, Master Sergeant Buchanan, Sergeant First Class McMichael, Korea and Vietnam War veterans. Those were my instructors in high school junior ROTC. Those were the men that saw something in that kid from the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, born in a blacks-only hospital, that set me on the path to fulfilling the goal that my father had laid out before me. So it is not just us with our kids directly. We have to make sure that we're surrounding them with the right type of positive reinforcement. Because one of the things that we see today, if you want to talk about a lack of values, kids are always looking for something to belong to. And if you don't give them something positive to belong to, Chief, you saw that up in Denver, they will matriculate to the gangs because there's a void. There's a gap there. And they're looking for something to fill it, something for purpose, something for direction. And so that's where early on I got my direction. And then the day came, 31 July 1982. Please put that picture up. Mommy and Daddy and stupid me in the middle. The only day, the only time I ever saw tears in my dad's eyes was that day there when his son became second lieutenant in the United States Army Field Artillery, because he realized that I was carrying on his legacy of honor, his legacy of integrity, and his legacy of patriotism. And I would go on to serve in combat just like my dad and my older brother. And oh, by the way, the story does not end there, because my older brother's son was also a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. See, that's what we have to do. These values that we see. Oh, and I forgot to mention, my godfather, a Tuskegee Airman, William Sticky Jackson. So that's why I'm standing here before you all, because of those type of men in my life. But you saw a picture of my mom up there. My mom was really the disciplinarian. I remember my mom once saying that I brought you into the world and I will take you out. My mom did 27 years of civilian service with the 6th Marine Corps District Headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have a great story about my mom to tell you how tough she was on me. You know, back in the day, there was no such thing as targeting penalties in football. I mean, you didn't play defense unless you were one of those slobber knocker kind of guys. You hit a guy so hard that the mouthpiece went everywhere. Well, I was that kind of guy, and I was a safety. And I'll never forget one game where I'm in there and I hit a guy so hard, head to head, knocked myself out. No, there wasn't, any ambulance coming in. There wasn't any trauma, medics, nothing. It was old school. The coach came out. He broke open the smelling salts, put it up under my nose. I woke up. They dragged me over to the sidelines, and I sat there and got my faculties back to me. But guess what happened? My mother, the old Southern woman from Fort Valley, Georgia, had come down out of the stands, and she stood behind me. To this day, never forget that voice. Baby, are you okay? Yeah, Mom, I'm a little fuzzy, but I'll be all right. You think you're going to go back in the game? You're going to play some more? I said, yeah, Mom, I think the coach will let me back in the game. She said, well, when you get back in there, you got to wrap him up because your tackling technique was horrible on that hit. She got down and did the tackling technique, okay? But why do I say this? It's because it's strong mothers that really help us in bringing up that next generation. See, one of the horrible things that we did to our young people, one of the horrible things when we start to pervert the values that they should know, is when we came up with a silly trinket called a participation trophy. A little plastic something that means nothing. But all of a sudden somebody, I don't know, some psychologist, some psychiatrist said that if you give this to kids, they'll help their self-esteem. My mother taught me an important lesson. Self-esteem comes from doing esteemable things. And that's what we have to teach our young people today. Because if we're not inculcating these values, if we're not talking to them about honor, about integrity, about patriotism, about love of country, then the next thing you know, you will see young people on college and university campuses that are protesting on behalf of an Islamic terrorist organization that killed Americans. Somewhere, somehow down the line, they didn't have a Herman West Sr., they did not have an Elizabeth West. They didn't have the right type of people around them. They allowed and they abdicated that responsibility as parents. And so I would say, first and foremost, when we talk about values, search your hearts. When was the last time you sat down with your kids and your grandkids and you talked about those words up there, honor, integrity, and patriotism? When was the last time you talked to them about what character really means? When was the last time you sat down and talked to them about the greatness of America? Because I knew that. Now, my mom and dad could have had every single reason not to love America. I never heard that out of their mouths. And my mom and dad could have raised me to be a victim. And society is always looking to make somebody a victim because that's what they want. My mom and dad taught me to be a victor. And that's one of the key things that we have to do. If there's one value that's important, teach our kids to be victors and not be dependent. Because when you think about the essence of the United States of America that we are blessed to live in, 250 years of independence. Why? Because you're endowed with an incredible value, those inalienable rights that do not come from a government with a little g, it comes from God with a big G. But when was the last time you sat down with your kids and just took out this simple little document and read to them the entire Declaration of Independence? See, I don't walk out the house without it. And the Constitution is here also, because that's what I took an oath to support and defend. See, when you read the Declaration of Independence and you understand that Thomas Jefferson studied a guy by the name of John Locke, the father of classical liberalism, and he started out our Declaration of Independence by invoking the laws of nature and nature's God, natural rights theory, that says that your life, your liberty, your property are endowed to you by that Creator God, the Judeo-Christian faith heritage God, and those cannot be taken away by anyone else. You are sovereign in America as an individual because your rights come from a sovereign God. But the sad thing is that we have some people that don't see it that way. Now, I don't know if I should call names, but there's a certain senator from the state of Virginia who last fall said that your rights don't come from anyone else but government. A senator from the state of Virginia, which is the home state of the man that wrote the Declaration of Independence, the third United States president, and the man who established the University of Virginia. You have a mayor of a very prominent city here in the United States of America. Some say it's the greatest city in our country, who said in his inaugural address in January that we're going to replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Now, I want you to unpack that when you think about how important it is to be an individual in this constitutional republic, the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. But yet now we have people in elected positions that are saying that it's not about rugged individualism. It's not about how we came here and we established towns and cities all across the West, how we took on the greatest military power that the world knew some 250 years ago in order to create this great nation. When you look at this wall of honor of these men who went out there and they were willing to do something above and beyond the call of duty, which is why they are recipients of something called a Medal of Honor. And see, that's why it's so important that we get this to our kids. Because our kids are starting to look for honor, they think, in the wrong places. I think y'all remember that song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. Our kids are looking for honor in all the wrong places. Our kids are looking for integrity in all the wrong places. Our kids are not being taught about patriotism at all. And it is time that we reclaim these future generations. When I look at these young cadets who came in here and presented our colors, one day, if we do it right, Drew, one day one of those kids will be standing here. One day, if we do it right, one of those kids will be up there on the wall. And of course, we're going to raise the funds so you can expand this incredible venue that we have, because this is something that our country needs. It needs to understand, come back to our center, come back to our fundamentals, come back to our foundation of American values. But it starts with us understanding what this country truly means. You know, when you talk to people from other countries where they haven't had all of these individual rights, freedoms, and liberties, they look at us and they say, what are you doing? Why would you allow this incredible blessing to slip through your hands? You know, there's a quote that I want to share with you, and it's the Army taught me I wasn't that smart. You and I used to jump out of airplanes, you know. Red light, you stay in the airplane. Green light, you jump. So I couldn't fly them, so I jumped out. Remember Chris? Chris Sorensen and I, we just jumped into D-Day not too long ago. But here's an important quote that I think we should remember from 250 years ago. These are the times which try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. This quote from Thomas Paine, written in the book, The Crisis, will be 250 years old this December. This December, we will remember Washington crossing the Delaware. But ask yourself, how many of our kids will be taught that? How many of our kids are getting lessons in civics? I mean, I got to tell you, you know, I did serve in Congress, and there's some people up there on Capitol Hill don't know 3 branches of government. But the reflection should be back on us to say, we do, and we should expect better. But it has to start with each and every one of you. You know, I'm always drawn back because I think it was Solomon who said in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. The Spanish political philosopher George Santayana once said, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I often go back to Joshua's farewell address, chapter 24, verse 15, where Joshua is standing out before the host of Israel. His days are numbered. He's about to pass on. And Joshua says, choose for yourselves today whom ye shall serve, being the gods of the Amorites or the gods from across the river. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It has to start. This facility is great, Drew, but the Center for American Values has to be in each and every one of our homes. And that's where you take it from there. And the interesting thing is that as Joshua was talking to the children of Israel, and they said, we will never forget what the Lord has done for us. Yes, we will honor, we will remember all that he has done in bringing us into this promised land. Then you flip over to the next book in the Bible, the book of Judges, starting at chapter 2, and it says that Joshua and the generations of Joshua passed away, and the children of Israel fell down and worshiped the Baals, and the anger of the Lord burned against them. They were given over to plunder and to plunderers. If we are to maintain this incredible experiment in self-governance, if we're going to make sure that 50 years from now, there's a young person standing here and talking about America at 300, then we've got to tell the story and pass it on from generation to generation to generation. If there's a break in that, then you see exactly what is happening in our country. Think about this. 200 years, our bicentennial, 1976. If anyone had stopped any of you all, and said, do you think 50 years from now we would be confused about what a man and a woman is? Do you think 50 years from now that we would be having a high-level discussion about biological males competing against biological females? Do you think 50 years ago we would be having discussions about our sovereignty as a nation? Or even whether or not we are a nation? This is why this mission and why we're here is so important. Honor means that you stand for something. As my mom taught me, a man must stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. You must stand with honor and willingly defend the rule of law, our principles, and our values. Collectivism is not who we are. It's about the strength of the individual. My older brother, when he came back from Vietnam, he only wanted to be one thing, an Atlanta police officer. And Chief, I'll never forget that first time when he drove his squad car up Kennesaw Avenue and I saw my brother and how proud I was of him. But that's what we need to have out there, raising individuals that will be proud of the men and women who stand not just on foreign shores, but on our streets here with honor. Integrity, teach the children well. Teach them that the most important thing is that you should be a person of truth. You should be a person of dignity. You should be the type of person that when you walk into the room, everybody notices that there's something different about you, and they realize that there's something about you that they want to have because you're exuding his light, H-I-S with the capital H. That's an important part of our values. And patriotism, I love this country. I love this country because it gave me a dad that taught me to love this country. I love this country because this country did not see me based upon where I was born. It saw me based upon what I could become. Because equality of outcomes is not who we are. Equality of opportunity is who we are. No matter where you're born, no matter where you come from, there's greatness in each and every one of us. It just has to be drawn out. So as you go forward in this 250th remembrance, celebration, anniversary of the greatest nation that the world has ever known, first of all, tell people that's the greatest nation that the world has ever known. Believe that it's the greatest nation that the world has ever known. Train them up to know truth. You know, I tell my daughters, who are 33 and 29, Pop has no problems if you challenge assertions wisely, but you better come at me with truth, because that's what I always try to train them up with. And be a man and woman of honor. Just like that man, United States Army Corporal, Herman West Sr., born in 1920 in Ozark, Alabama. God bless you all, and thank you for having me.
right, we are going to open it up for questions. Who would like to go first?
Oh, Hank, I know you. You shouldn't go first. Go ahead.
Get the hook.
Yeah, get the hook. So what's in your next chapter of your life? What are you planning? Another book or?
Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Lean not upon your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will guide your path. I don't sit around and try to move the chess pieces of my life, and I think you screw up when you try to do that. I think the most important thing you should do is you should always seek to be a humble and obedient servant to God and country. That's why I'm here. That's why these men are up there. And so I just know that God told me, you will be here on this specific day. I don't know where he will have me in a month or two, but wherever he sends me, I will take his message.
Thank you.
Colonel, I just want to let you know about a project that I'm associated with the Denver Police Department. Our local cable magnate, a fellow named Bill Daniels, bequeathed quite a bit of money to us. And we have used that to buy a 400-year-old row house in Saint-Méric-Lys, France.
Oh, wow.
Which is, if folks know that they ever watched The Longest Day,
82nd Airborne Division.
when Red Buttons dropped on the church and he's hanging there, to this day they have a mannequin hanging on that church. But the point I want to make with you is we take these kids over from the junior and senior high school that have no idea what World War II is,
Yes.
how America was primarily responsible for saving the world.
Yeah.
It's not taught in schools.
Yep.
They don't know anything about it. Their parents are beyond, the era that I was. All my dad's friends served. And I just wanted you to be aware of that project, that we take those kids over. And I'm going to be going with Henry and with Major Dix. We're going to go in June and to visit and see what we show the kids. But isn't that a tragedy? It's no wonder these young
Yeah.
people don't respect America. They have no clue how great we were, how great we are now. It's not taught.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend in church that is a retired junior high school teacher, and he told me the furthest back he could go was Ronald Reagan. It's that if we need to correct anything, that's one of the first things
No,
we need to
I
do.
absolutely agree with you, and I will tell you, I am part of an organization called the Young Americas Foundation, and last year I took 25 college students over to Normandy, took them to Omaha Beach, Utah Beach, up to the cemetery, and they actually got to see the old colonel jump into a drop zone that the 101st Airborne Division Pathfinders went into at St. Martin de Verreville, just in from Utah, and they had never seen anything like that. And I will tell you that as you watch these young kids, when they first arrive, to the time after 4.5, 5 days when they left, completely different kids. I mean, I saw boys and girls crying. Because when they're standing there on Utah Beach, you tell them very simply, an American died right here where you're standing. That's how we got to connect our kids to history. I mean, there are many great battlefields that we can take our kids to right here in the United States of America. Take them to a place, to Gettysburg. One of the things my dad did, I could tell you all about the Civil War battlefields throughout Georgia. Starting up there at Lookout Mountain, Resaca, all the way down Kennesaw Mountain, into Atlanta. I remember my dad took me to Andersonville. And I tell you, it was a spiritual feeling standing there at Andersonville. But what did my dad teach? He taught me to understand history and to appreciate it. And so I think it's so important that once again, we take that mantle up and do that. We have to connect them to history. Remember what I said. The generations of Joshua had passed away. No one connected the children of Israel to all the things that had been done. And so what did they do? They went off and worshiped other things. And that's what our kids are doing. Look, you can't just turn your kid over to the iPad. You can't turn your kid over to the iPhone. I think one of the worst things we did was all of a sudden in our cars, we put these TV screens on the back, of the seats there. Now, if you're showing them, like the ARC films, or you're showing them some things about history, that's fine. But we stopped having communication with our kids. I mean, even when you go out to dinner, you see people that are sitting there, mommy's on cell phone, daddy's on cell phone, kids on cell phone. Nobody's talking. You know, one of the things that my mommy and daddy made me do before I ate dinner every night growing up in that house, 661 Kennesaw Avenue, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30308, I had to take one story out of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I had to explain that story. I had to give them a summary of that story. Okay? How did I become so interested and learn to love math? My dad would sit down, and we would go through the box scores of the Atlanta Braves. You know, Hank Aaron went 3 for 4. What does that mean? If he was up 4 times, what was his batting average for that game? Phil Niekro was up. I mean, out of his pitches, he threw X amount of knuckleballs. How many knuckleballs did he throw? How many strikes did he throw? And I learned to understand math. And the next thing you know, my dad started showing me the business page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. That's what you have to start doing. If you do not invest in the future generation, if you do not inculcate your principles and values, somebody else will. I get so tired of parents coming up to me and say, hey, Colonel, you know, I used to know my kid, but they came home from college and they're a different kid. I think about this. If I had ever come home from University of Tennessee and told my mom and daddy my professor was smarter than them, and I don't care what they say, dude, you wouldn't have me speaking here, okay? So what happened to us that all of a sudden the professor at wherever, Umpty Frat School, or the teacher at Umpty Frat High School or middle school, they're smarter than you, they're more important than you. You have got to reclaim your house. You've got to reclaim your communities. And I'll tell you something, we got some problems in some of our churches too. Yes, sir.
Colonel,
Yes, sir.
thank you, sir.
No, it's my pleasure.
You said something here this day in Pueblo, Colorado. You said you love this country. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Because that's something I carry in my heart. And I often ask myself whether I'm a little lopsided about that, irrational about that, inflexible about that. No. So thank you, sir, for reaffirming the position and grounds that I stand on.
You got it. Thank you, Ken. Hey, this is being recorded, right? Yes. Hey, is that the camera right there? Hey, look, Al Sharpton, I know that a couple of days ago you had some conference talking about why should you as a black person celebrate, you know, America. This isn't your Independence Day. Let me tell you something, chucklehead. You just erased the memory of Crispus Attucks. That's part of our history. A black man who lost his life at the Boston Massacre. And you erase the history of all of, you know, Washington's spies. He had a spy that was a black man. So Al Sharpton, you're completely wrong. And I think that maybe you should go and check out another country if you don't think that you're enjoying the independence of this great country, upon which they fought a civil war to make sure we could be free. And you can clip that and send it personally to Al Sharpton.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here.
Your thing. I taught my kids about the divine right of kings, that this country is really exceptional. That prior to it, you know, this is just not normal in human history.
No.
Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you know, what John Locke put forward was a challenge to the theory that was prevalent in that day, divine rights theory, meaning a king, a queen, duke, a duchess, prince, a princess, lord with a little l, a baron, or whatever. They were the ones that dictated your rights, your buy and your leave. But what John Locke did, he took, think about this, October the 31st, 1571? Yeah, no, not 1519. October 31st, 1519. A Germanic monk goes and nails some things on the church in Wittenberg, 95 Theses. And what were the 95 Theses about, Martin Luther? It was about saying that you do not have to go to a bishop or a pope or anybody else as an intercessor for you to go to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's why he went to the cross, so that you could have a direct relationship. That's why the veil was torn, so that you could go and see the Holy of Holies. So what John Locke did, he took Martin Luther and he said, it's not just about you having a direct faith relationship with God. It's about all of your relationship, all of your rights come from him. Natural rights theory. And so, again, this is what Thomas Jefferson read to set this in motion here in the United States of America. We are truly the embodiment of Martin Luther through John Locke to where we are today. But yet we have people that don't understand that government exists by the consent of the governed. That's what it says. And never forget, when you talk about this thing about divine rights theory and natural rights theory, September the 17th, 1787, Benjamin Franklin comes out of Constitution Hall. The Constitution has just been signed. A very influential Philadelphia socialite by the name of Mrs. Powell comes up to Mr. Franklin and says, well, doctor, what is it that we have, a monarchy or a republic? What did Franklin reply to Mrs. Franklin? A republic if you can keep it. Which is why this insightful man created this incredible center. Because if we don't understand those American values, if we don't make it the center of our existence, then the next thing you know, some guy stands up and says, we're going to replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Collectivism, that's Marxism. That's socialism. That's communism. That ain't our values. But we have got to have courageous men and women. And guess what? You've got to be courageous, and you've got to understand it to be able to articulate it. When you're a little smarty pants, grandson, granddaughter, son, and daughter come home, and they're like, nah, I know this, and you don't know that. You just smack them down with the truth, okay? Because most times, let me tell you, I go and speak on college and university campuses. It takes you 1 minute to break them down. And then they stand there with the deer in the headlights look like, go sit down, okay? Next. Maybe there was a video of me at Northwestern University, okay? Really smart kids school, Northwestern University. I couldn't get into Northwestern University, okay? I couldn't even play football in Northwestern University. But I gave a speech on the topic of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iranian nuclear agreement. I thought I did pretty good. And the very first question came from a young black female student. She stepped up and she said, do you identify as black? Don't believe it? You can Google that right now, and you can see it has like 21 million hits. Do you identify as black? I walk through the airport, and there are young people say, it's you. They identify as black guy. Oh, yeah, I'm still black, yeah. But someone at that university had made this young girl believe that your pigmentation dictates how you think and your perspectives and your insights. Now, I could have just gone high right on her and yelled and screamed at her, but no. I just tried to break it down to her and explain it to her very calmly. And you know that when that presentation was over, she actually came up and apologized because I took the time to get her to understand what she was saying was so outrageous, absurd, and insidious. That's why you have to study to show thyself approved. That's in the Bible. If you want to win this philosophical battle that we're in, and it's a value about principles and values. Yes, sir.
Hey, sir. Thank you for being here, and thanks to the center for always having the speaker series very impactful. So I'm a veteran, just 32 years, and where do you see? Excuse me.
You got me beat. I only did 22.
Yes, sir. Where do you see veterans making the biggest impact in local communities right now?
Veterans need to run for office. Veterans need to run for office, first and foremost. And I want veterans to run for local office. We need to have good people run for school board. The most important elected position in the United States of America is school board. Why? Because they are teaching and inculcating values into our future generations. You also need to be out there, city council. But veterans also need to be out there as poll watchers, poll workers, election judges, things of this nature. You got to get engaged. You got to get involved. And show up at some of these schools, okay? Because again, like the chief was saying, there are so many young people. World War I, II, III, Korean War, I mean, they have no clue. You've got to convey to them the sacrifices and the service of incredible men and women that enable them to live in this great nation. So I want veterans to go out and let people know that they're a veteran. You know, people say, well, why, when you're out, you wear your, your jump wings and everything? Because I want people to know that I serve, and I want people to ask me. There's so many people, when I get on a plane, what are those? Well, first of all, I tell them I just bought it on eBay because I wanted to look cool. But then I explain to them because they don't know that paratroopers jumped in on D-Day. What's D-Day? We have got to do better, and we've got to step up to the plate because garbage in, garbage out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there putting a lot of garbage in. Anybody else? I didn't do that good. Nobody wants to talk about Iran? Okay. Nobody wants no?
I have a question again.
Okay. Well, hold on. You got to get the mic because you're being recorded. You're on candid camera.
Thank you. I think it's a question we all have.
Yes, sir.
And that is, let me just use one word, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We've got a problem, and we can speak to what we all, veterans, librarians, doctors, whatever, must do, but it ain't getting done. They are outflanking us. It's time to call a spade here.
Well, one of the things is that there's a group of people in this country. They will believe in something and they will fight you for it, and it's totally wrong. And they know it's totally wrong. But we have to have that same type of exuberance. We have to have that same type of spirit. We have to have that same type of resolve and vigilance. Look, the Constitution is very simple. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, which lets you know that we do live in a constitutional republic. Two things that the federal government is supposed to provide to every state in the union. Number one, a Republican form of government, not a Republican Party, a Republican form of government. The second thing is to protect every state from invasion. What you saw happen here in Colorado, in Aurora, when you had people going through apartment buildings with AK-47s, they're here illegally, that should have incensed everybody. But for people to take to the streets and defend folks that are here illegally, and oh, by the way, Title 18, United States Code 1325, unauthorized entry into the United States of America is a federal offense. First time misdemeanor, subsequent times after that, felony offense. 18-year-old girl, Loyola of Chicago University, shot by a person that was here illegally, who had been picked up for shoplifting and released back out into the streets. Sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, and I think I'm kind of standing in one right here, it's unconstitutional. So we have to start standing on the rule of law, and there has to be consequences and ramifications to people that are not following the rule of law. If you are a person that is a mayor or a governor and you're saying that you're going to harbor people that are here illegally, you are aiding and abetting a crime. And that's how we have to look at it, cut and dry. And they should be held accountable for that. There's a website, a document. If you can go and Google Americans killed by criminal illegal immigrants. It's 49 pages long. 49 pages of Americans that were killed by people that should not have been in this country. So I got to tell you, one of the most basic values is that you got to believe that you are in a country that is sovereign and has a right to have its borders protected. But we cannot continue to excuse this. We cannot continue to say that, you can't bring a plastic spoon to a gunfight. Plastic spoons don't work well in gunfights. But too often we are bringing plastic spoons to a gunfight, and they're not outflanking us. We are just not showing the level of courage that we need to be showing. And you're standing on everything that is right, that is true, based upon our founding documents.
Perhaps that was a very unfair question directed at you because it's our responsibility. We've got to motivate.
Well, then again, like I said, it comes back to, down south we call it ussin'. Y'all know what ussin' is, right? All y'all, okay? It comes back to us. I mean, if we're not having these discussions, if we're not saying, this is the rule of law, and again, that's why you got to carry this. That's why you got to study it. That's why you got to understand it. You can't have those discussions with your kids if you don't know it yourself.
I don't care about the rule of law.
Well, you got to care
I will
about
not enforce the rule of law. I feel that prisons are unfair. They're racist. They were unfair.
You're tricking me. Right? Okay,
But
I got it.
I'm just the echo that we all live with.
I know. I was about to leap, man. I was.
No.
No, I get it. That's the response. That's the retort.
What, and it's unfair for me or
Okay.
anyone in the room to stand here and ask you what.
Isaiah 5:20. What does Isaiah 5:20 say? Woe be to those who will call good evil and evil good, who has changed light for darkness and darkness for light, who will exchange sweet for bitter and bitter for sweet. That's where we are. And if we don't start calling out that which is evil, that which is bad, but you got to understand what is good. That's where we are in the United States of America right now. And so I don't care about this, oh, but don't you feel bad for it? Nope, you break the law, there are consequences and ramifications. Just the same as when I was growing up, if my mama said XYZ, I didn't do XYZ, she told me to get the switch, okay? And I didn't like it when I got the switch. So we've got to get back to that. You know, and I'll close on this. There's a level of discipline. There's a level of responsibility that comes in living in a nation like ours where you have so many immense freedoms. And we've got to understand that level of responsibility. And we cannot just sit around and say, well, don't you want to be? No. If you do something that is wrong, there's a punishment for it. So let's get back to the, last question?
Yeah, we got it.
You just messed up my mojo. That was supposed to be like my Mac Daddy closing line. I mean, did you see she don't know about Mac Daddy. She's not from Georgia, okay? But go ahead.
I just want to hear more from you. What do you think about the Iran war and your evaluation of what's going on?
It's very simple. I came on active duty October the 30th of 1983. That was 1 week after the Beirut barracks bombing of October 23rd, 1983. 47 years they've been killing us. I've been on the battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've seen what the explosive force penetrators do. It was about time that someone stood up and understood that this is the #1 sponsor of Islamic terrorism. This is a theocratic, maniacal regime that wants to have domination over the globe, but the only way they can have domination is with a catastrophic event that brings back the hidden imam, the Mahdi, the 12th imam. That's who they are. And so, yes, we have stood up and we have made incredible geopolitical, strategic moves. They don't have the force to be able to threaten that region. And now we are saying that you're not going to be in control of one of the preeminent straits that the flow of oil and gas comes to. Wouldn't it be interesting? I want you to think about this. Our president is going to sit down with the president of China in a month. Wouldn't it be interesting if the president of China has to look to the president of the United States of America and say, would you please let me have some oil and gas, okay? That's the position that we put China in. Why? Because they're no longer getting illegal oil from Venezuela. They're no longer getting illegal oil from Iran. And energy is a very important linchpin in the pillars of security. There's economic security, there's national security, in the middle is energy security. Why did Japan get pissed off at us and they started World War II? Because we cut off the floor of oil shipments to them. That's an incredible thing. And now we are producing, consuming, net exporter. We want to have more people coming to us. We don't want to, remember Jimmy Carter, even odd days? We don't want to go back to that. Energy security is very important for your economic and national security. Iran cannot exist as the regime that it is. And right now, let's choke them off with the major source of revenues that they get. Thank y'all.